Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Pretty good here. Gonna do a real old school video tonight to get my fingers out of the way on a handheld iPhone. Why not? Let's go back in time a little bit. Anyway, I'm driving home in the Tundra, and I got a question today asking me why didn't I choose an F-150, I guess. Well, it's a good question, I suppose. I mean, the F-150 is supposed to be the #1 selling truck in the nation, in the world. I'm not exactly sure, but it is supposed to be #1 somewhere. Anyway, to answer that, there's a few reasons, I guess. The first and foremost reason is because I've had a couple of F-150s in the past. I believe I had a 2014 and a 2015. And the reason I got rid of the 2014 primarily is because it had transmission problems. At least what I deemed to be transmission problems. In other words, when you were backing up and you stop, shift into drive, push on the gas to go, there was a hesitation and almost a lurch, a thump kind of feeling, if that makes sense, when it went from reverse to drive. And before anybody says anything, no, I didn't slam it into drive while I was still rolling backwards or do it in any kind of a hurried motion where that would make sense. I reversed, I stopped, I shifted to drive, and I pushed on the gas, just like that. So I got rid of that F-150. I will say that the reason I got rid of that one too is probably because of the infotainment system as well. It was horrible. It was difficult to use. It didn't make any sense. It didn't seem to work right to me. I don't know, but that certainly played a little tiny role in getting rid of it. The transmission thing was the real reason. So what did I do? I bought a 2015 F-150. I thought, what are the chances? You can't have, the same problem in the same truck, and it's a different year. I mean, it's certainly not the same problem, right? I was wrong. It did the same thing. And again, I will stress that, I did not go directly from reverse to drive and then floor it, which I could see it doing it if you did that. You didn't give it enough time to shift, if you will. So that was my big problem. They did change the radio, by the way, so the infotainment problem was gone, as minor as it may have been. The next reason is the truck was, it was just lacking in the interior. It was real, I'll call it industrial. It had a lot of cheap looking plastic. The seats weren't particularly comfortable. It felt like I was driving a work truck. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're buying an F-150 as a work truck, then it's great, I guess, if you don't mind the transmission thing. But when you're spending, in that case, I think $45,000 or $6,000, something like that. It was the XLT version, both of them. I want a little bit more than that. For me, it was more of a daily driver kind of comfort vehicle, if you will. I was looking for some of the plusher stuff. That's why I bought the, whatever their version is called, the quad cab or crew cab or extended cab. It had 4 normal size doors. Whatever they refer to it as, I forget. But I wanted something that was more comfortable and had some of the amenities in it, and it just seemed to be a little bit lacking there. I wasn't real happy with it from that perspective. As far as the power goes, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't nearly as fast, and it was a V8. Both were V8s. But it wasn't nearly as quick or as fast, I guess, as what the Rebel was, or certainly not as what the Tundra is. So that was another underlying factor, I guess. And I kind of got sick of the looks of it a little bit, you know. It wasn't sexy enough for me. Hey, if I'm being honest, it wasn't. It really wasn't. It was too old school Ford looking. I know, I guess, you know. Which isn't a bad thing again. I mean, if you like the style of the truck, then that's okay, and that's a good thing, because if we all drove the same thing, it'd be pretty boring, right? So, but it wasn't right for me. And some of you will say, well, you should have known that when you bought it. Well, maybe I should have, you know, but at the time, it was probably the most appealing truck out there. Shortly thereafter, of course, I went to the Rebel and now the Tundra, so there really isn't much more than that for me, you know. It did feel, now that I have the Tundra, I can probably add one more thing, although it didn't really apply then, but it would now. It felt huge, and it is big. Trucks are big today. When you get a full-size quad cab, crew cab, whatever cab truck, they are quite large. So, but it felt that way. You know, driving on the road, it just felt like it was taking up side to side all the space, you know. The Tundra doesn't feel that way. Of course, like I said, I wouldn't have known that back then, but perhaps in the back of my mind, that giant feel that I got from the truck actually had something to do with it. I don't know. Mileage wise, you know, if you're looking for fuel economy, again, I always say, why are you buying a truck? Don't buy a full-size truck anyway. If you're into fuel economy, you probably ought to buy mid-size. The Tacoma, maybe the Ridgeline, maybe the Colorado. I'm not sure what the Colorado gets fuel-wise, but the Tacoma's pretty good. Maybe you ought to be into that. But from a fuel economy standpoint in that truck, I believe it was getting, I think I got as high as about 19 miles a gallon in that truck. Again, it was the V8, not their EcoBoost version, I don't believe, back then. So the mileage, while not Prius mileage, of course, was not too bad. I mean, you know, 19 miles a gallon in a full-size truck is pretty good. I was approaching that in the Rebel here and there as well, so not too bad. Of course, the Tundra, if I glance over right now, I'm at 14.4. So again, depends on how sensitive you are to gas mileage, I guess, what it really means to you. Doesn't mean a lot to me because, again, I'm in a truck, so not that big of a deal. I will post up a couple pictures if I can find them. I think I have maybe at least one picture of one of the F-150s I had at the end, so you guys can see that. But those are my reasons. They're not, except for the transmission thing, they're not huge reasons, but I'll reference Flying Gatto talking about his Type R and the transmission issues he's having there. They can be big issues, of course. I don't know. Oops, going through an underpass there. I don't know if they're still having those issues or not. I would hope whatever the issue was is certainly solved by now. You know, what, 3, 4, whatever it is, model years later. I would certainly think so. But anyway, those are the reasons why I didn't look at an F-150 again. I probably won't have an F-150 unless something really changes and it really catches my eye. Anytime in the future, I'd stick with either Tundra or Ram if I was to do anything again. And that's really an aesthetic reason, I guess. I just like the looks of these two trucks better. So far, I like everything else about the Tundra better than the Ford 50. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching. Gatto had asked me that question, so I thought I'd get on here and shoot an old school iPhone video on the way home to address that. As usual, appreciate you guys watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't before. We'll see you next time on the web. Have a good day. Bye.